The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
Kevin Durant is a monster, Mike. We just came off our third playback in a row, our third Phoenix Suns victory playback in a row. Actually, it might even be, our streak might be more than that by now. I'm not actually sure.
It's 4, for playback.
We just had a lot of fun on playback for the last couple hours. We're trying to keep the momentum going right now. It's 11:30 at night Eastern time for me, but I don't even care.
The game just ended.
I don't
10
even
minutes
care.
ago, maybe. Yeah.
Game just ended. Kevin Durant just gave us a game winner, and the Suns complete another great fourth quarter comeback. And Mike and I were on the fence about this one. We said, you know what? The schedule is weird this week. Maybe we have to record on Tuesday. Fuck it. We're here. Yeah. We got to, keep the energy up. We got to talk about this win streak and specifically this win against the Chicago Bulls because they did it again and Kevin Durant did it again.
And, not even just, I can't wait to look at the stats for this because we're recording, close enough to the end of the game to not even have the full stats of like how many shots he made to ignite that comeback. But the game winner was obviously just absolutely incredible and amazing. But just clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot to even give them a chance to be in the game at the end. And it was all KD, really. Because Booker and Beal didn't even get to 20 points, unlike the last game. This was the second night of a back-to-back. The previous game, they all scored over 20. But in this game, 43 points by Kevin Durant, 8 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, only 1 turnover, and only 18 points for Beal and only 16 points for Devin Booker. I shouldn't say only for Beal. That's about his average. But Kevin Durant just absolutely carried them in that game, in a game where, at the beginning of the season, first half of the games that we've watched so far, the Suns would have had no chance to come back into this. But now they have their shit together a lot better. They've had multiple good fourth quarters in a row now, and obviously a 6-game win streak that culminates in this incredible comeback against the Chicago Bulls, who played really well in this game, but the Suns found a way to win. A really amazing victory.
I am quickly trying to scroll through all of Kevin Durant's previous game logs. I'm not sure if I'm going to find this fast enough, but what impressed me most about his performance tonight, actually a lot of things impressed me about his performance tonight, so it's not just this, but he took 15 threes. From what I see right here, again, this is 5 minutes after the game ended, folks, so I honestly don't know. It's definitely his season high. He hasn't taken more than 9 threes in a game with the Suns this season. This damn well might be his career high. I'm honestly not sure. I have to go through the rest of the game logs. But started out his
or just in general?
It's definitely his Suns high by a lot.
Yeah.
15 threes, but this might be his career high in a 16-year career or whatever it is. That's how many threes Kevin Durant took tonight. Well, I see here, the last time Kevin Durant took 15 threes in a game, do you want to guess when it was, Mike? I've got it right here. It took me a while to find.
I just found it.
You just found it? Fuck, what do you... All right, it's April 6th, 2014.
Yeah.
April 6th, 2014, 10 years ago against guess who? Well, the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
in a game that the Oklahoma City Thunder lost against the Phoenix Suns 10 years ago. That was the last time that Kevin Durant took 15 threes in a game. He started 1 for 7 in this one and kept taking shots, and you made a point to bring it up time and time again on the playback, but this is a guy who can just catch fire at any moment, so he should never stop shooting, never stop seizing those opportunities when he gets the chance.
And yes, I thought it was especially impressive just starting 0 for 6 and then finding a way to come back into it and just make all those threes to end the game. I think he probably had 3 in a row in the fourth quarter there just to give them a chance to win it. And then, of course, the game winner, which ended up being a mid-range shot, by the way, where he rose up to shoot. Alex Caruso came into the frame, right, with his arm in position to block Kevin Durant's shot. Kevin Durant readjusted his hands to dodge the Alex Caruso block and then still found a way to get it up and into the basket on another contest by Pat Williams, I believe, in his face. Just an absolutely incredible shot after the Bulls fouled with about 6 seconds left. The Suns had 6 seconds to create a shot. And then after that, when the Bulls had one more chance to score, who was it guarding the DeRozan shot? Yeah, spoiler, Kevin Durant, of course, with his length, just getting up into his space and not giving him a clean look at the basket. DeRozan, of course, still got it up and it hit the rim. But Durant didn't give him an easy path in order to do that. Just an amazing game. I called it an MVP type game by Kevin Durant. They're the 5th seed now, right? You can actually bring the higher and higher they rise in the standings, the more you can talk about somebody like that being in the MVP conversation.
And the reason they're the 5th seed right now, just for folks who still aren't in that stage where they're checking the standings every day, I feel like you should probably get there pretty soon because we're over halfway through. The end of the season's coming up on us fast, believe it or not. But we've played one game against the New Orleans Pelicans. We beat them. So for now, we have the tiebreaker, even though they have the same record. Meanwhile, Dallas lost to Boston tonight, a really hard game for them, obviously. Sacramento is still in that kind of group as well. We're currently waiting to see how they finish against, who are they playing tonight? Atlanta.
Hawks.
They are currently up 13 on Atlanta. I mean, look, that game will be over by the time anyone hears this, but they'll probably win. But even if they do, Phoenix they leapfrog Dallas. They have the tiebreaker with New Orleans. It's going to be really, really close. All of these teams, 5 through 8. But here we are. We're the 5th seed. And we were joking about it on Playback too. Can you imagine another first-round playoff series against the 4th-seeded currently Los Angeles Clippers if that ended up being the first-round matchup for the Suns? That would be pretty scary, I think, in some ways, but also pretty funny just because of how often we've met up with that team recently.
I had to this is a tangent, forgive me, but I had to look it up. April 6th, 2014, the last time Durant took 15 3-point attempts, his career high, which he tied today. Against the Suns, you said, I want to bring it up. The Suns won 122-115 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That was the 48-win Suns team that missed the playoffs. Do you want to guess I think you could guess this one pretty easy, who the high scorer in that game was for the Phoenix Suns?
Goran Dragic.
Goran Dragic, 22 points. Or 26 points, I should say. Next highest scorer, Gerald Green, with 24. And the next guy, this was funny, PJ Tucker, who had 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. And when I saw that, I feel like I could remember this game almost because that season, at the very end of the season, the Suns are 46-31 when they won this game. I just remember how close they were to making the playoffs.
I remember how close they were to making the playoffs, but also actually it's funny because I seem to recall, and look, we play the Thunder multiple times a year, but I want to say another game against the Thunder that year was when Gerald Green had 40 points.
I vividly remember that one game? Because I was there in person. Oh, yeah.
There you go. And I want to say I feel like I even remember the jerseys in that one because that's when the NBA was doing the whole weird sleeved jerseys thing.
Yeah.
Just a vivid season in the memories of a lot of Suns fans before it kind of all went to shit for a little while. But that was a very long time ago. Kevin Durant was a young
10
man.
10 years ago.
And the concept of taking 15 threes in a game, in a non-overtime game, which I believe that was too, in 2014, it just wasn't done. Steph Curry was still like, ankle injury Steph Curry. Like, he wasn't even MVP Steph Curry yet. That's how crazy. Like, he probably was a one-time All-Star at that time. So just a different era, and it's crazy to think about how much the league has evolved.
Yeah, I think that was his third year, maybe 4th year in the league for Steph. But yeah, just incredible for him to tie that again in this season, and in such an incredible game where he scored 43 points, 8 assists. Another thing, I know I don't want to get too far off Durant here. It's hard to say much more than just his incredible shot making, but the other weird part about this game, the leaders of this game in plus minus, Drew Eubanks and Keita Bates-Diop, who were plus 19 and plus 15, scored 10 and 5 points each in a game where the Suns were tired, very clearly tired in the second night of a back-to-back. These two bench guys, without Eric Gordon too, came in and had massive games for the Suns. I mean, in some sense, the technical foul that Drew Eubanks inexplicably got kind of started the energy that led to this comeback, as far as at least the crowd now being involved in the game a little bit. But Drew Eubanks, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He actually had some of the passes down, including a really big one to Grayson Allen in the corner. And then Keita Bates-Diop, not an overly impressive offensive game, but he did make 1 3, which is the bar's low. The bar's low.
We had a lot of big, loud reactions on the playback stream tonight, but we were definitely louder for the KD game winner. But maybe second to the KD game winner was Keita Bates-Diop hitting a 3, because I was like, when is the last time? In fact, I'm going to look that up too, live here on the pod. The last time Keita Bates-Diop made a 3, I couldn't even tell you, dude. It's been so long. We needed a game like this.
And while you look that up, guarded DeRozan for a lot of the game. Outside of when the starters were all in together, that was what Keita Bates-Diop was brought in there to do. And DeRozan ended up 8 for 17 on the night, which is, not perfect, but that's kind of what we needed in order to win this one, was for him to miss some shots, because they were making everything from 3 to start this game. And by the way, funny game too, because it ended with the Bulls shooting 37 threes and the Suns shooting 34, and it flipped so hard that the Suns ended up shooting better from 3 by the end of the game than the Chicago Bulls. They got shooters, they got guys who could do it, and I think Bradley Beal hit a really important one towards the end of the game to help keep them in it. Booker kind of invisible throughout this game. Ended with 16, 5 and 4. Only took 11 shots. Just kind of was, I don't know, maybe just didn't feel it, but he was being very passive offensively, which at the end of the game was really smart, because it ended up with Durant shooting some shots in important times of the game. But yeah, it was entirely carried by Durant. And what we're used to seeing, right, is Nurkic dominating the game in plus minus and Eubanks stepping in and it flipping. And that was the opposite that happened in this game. So very, very, very big shout outs to Drew Eubanks and Keita Bates-Diop, who just were vital for the Suns to win this one.
Couple things to respond to there. First of all, you mentioned the 34 threes. The Suns continue to win games when they attempt at least 30 threes, and last night against Indiana was a bit of an exception where they won anyway, but they tend to lose games when they don't take 30 threes.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to track that stat throughout the year, because it is just an inevitable kind of correlation with this team. You can't help but notice this correlation that the more threes they take, the more they tend to win games. And, there are other things that go into that. There's more to basketball than just taking threes, but it makes a difference. You need to play a modern style of basketball.
Right.
About KBD, I did look it up. Last time he made 1 3 was January 8th against the Clippers, so a couple of weeks ago. The last time he made 2 threes in a game, which, believe it or not, has happened this season, was November 8th in the Suns' overtime win against, guess who, the Chicago Bulls. So there is obviously something to this matchup
the Bulls,
between Keita Bates-Diop and the Chicago Bulls. He likes playing them, I guess.
I mean, that's really funny, by the way, and also kind of depressing. This man shot 41% from 3 last year. But I do also appreciate, I guess Frank Vogel knew about the Keita Bates-Diop Bulls thing, but also I think trusting Drew Eubanks after him being on the floor during an important part of their comeback, he trusted him late in the game as well to stay on the floor, basically until the end when he put Nurkic in for maybe the last 3 to 4 plays, but trusting Drew Eubanks, who desperately needs his confidence back in order for this team to continue to play well with him on the floor. That's the type of game where he could get his confidence back. And we're talking about Frank Vogel, by the way, 2 huge challenges.
Yeah.
First one, not as big, obviously, but the first one, if he didn't win it, right, he wouldn't have had it for the second one, which is the challenge on a Grayson Allen foul on DeRozan, which would have put the Bulls up by 3 very late in the game, final 2.5 minutes of the game. And they ended up flipping the call to an offensive foul on DeMar DeRozan because he just grabbed Grayson Allen's arm on the way down. I mean, throughout the season, there has been some good challenges by Frank Vogel in general, which obviously some credit goes to Frank, some credit goes to the iPad coach, is what I call him, the guy on the bench who holds the iPad and watches the replays.
We should figure out who that. This
is the second game that I can remember
is.
where a challenge had a massive impact on the outcome of the game.
Yeah, people were asking us in the chat on Playback tonight also the stats on that, and I truthfully, I don't have the stats to how frequently Frank is successful on challenges, but it does feel like that percentage is a great bit higher than it would have been with Monty, or than it was with Monty,
right,
to be honest.
Right.
I think he's doing a good job with it. I think we can have an even greater discussion about Frank as a coach recently and some of the decisions he's made. If you'd like to, we don't have to, but I think he continues to experiment and it's working.
Yeah.
It's not always going to work, but like since this is a main feed episode, let's just consider where we were last time we recorded a main feed episode. The Suns had beaten the Lakers. They had beaten the Blazers. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct?
I think so. That sounds right.
And we came on here and I said, look, great to have 2 wins in a row. Great to have a little bit of momentum, but this is a huge week coming up where we're playing actual playoff teams. And if we want to believe in this team as a contender again, we need to see evidence. We need to see evidence against teams like the Sacramento Kings, who they like. The Sacramento Kings was a week ago. That was another miracle comeback game that we're barely even having the opportunity to talk about here. Then you go to the New Orleans Pelicans, have a fairly, ends up being a 14-point win, but a fairly dominant at least first 3 quarters against that team. Devin Booker with 52 points. Then you go to a back-to-back against the Indiana Pacers and the Chicago Bulls. KD pours in 83 combined points in those 2 games. So we've got the evidence. They're starting to beat important teams. And as for Frank, what do we see in the Kings game? We see the death lineup, right? Eric Gordon didn't play tonight, so that wasn't an option. But going back to the Kings game, you go to KD at center. You surround him with the guards. He trusts in that lineup. They make the comeback. You go into the game against the Pelicans. They're going to change it up a little bit, right? It's going to be a different strategy. Bradley Beal takes the matchup on Zion Williamson, which is a thing that I think, kind of just like in the moment, a lot of people acknowledged, but maybe since then we haven't properly acknowledged how awesome that was by
incredible.
Frank to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant is going to go on Brandon Ingram. Okay, fine. Like Devin Booker theoretically could have taken that matchup too, but instead Booker's going to go on a guard, and we're going to put Bradley Beal on Zion, and we're going to bring help. We're going to wall up with Nurk as the last line of defense.
Yep.
And effectively, not that Zion didn't not score in that game or anything. He still got his points, but they really kind of threw him off in the half court and turns it into a game where the only way Zion was able to score was if he was leaping over the defense, if he got down the court fast enough in transition. And the half court defense for the Suns, particularly with Bradley Beal taking on that challenge, fighting for defensive rebounds, defensive positioning, he did a really good job, right? And so, a lot of these decisions that Frank is making recently, he's continuing to experiment with the defensive schemes. He's continuing to experiment with the rotations, kind of just by virtue of the overall mess that the bench is. But he deserves a lot of credit for the current run that the Suns are on. He's done a great job recently, I think.
You go back even a little bit before that and throw in the transformation by Bol Bol from a completely useless player to a player that, I mean, every time you see the injury report and he's out, I think Suns fans all have a collective sigh because they want to see him play because he was actually a useful player for the Suns off the bench. And that's a lot of good coaching in order to do that. And, you talked about all of that, plus Katie Bates-Diop. I think that you and I probably desperately did not want to see him play today, and he played a really important role in this victory. Drew Eubanks, every time he steps on the floor, especially in playback, we see the reaction by people who are watching, and he trusted him late in the game, and it helped ignite a comeback in order for the Suns to win. Not
Drew
perfect coach, right?
You were calling him
Drew Manaton.
Drew Manaton is the new. That's the new nickname, folks.
Yeah,
there you go.
And to win 6 in a row for a team that struggled in the fourth quarter, obviously health helps a lot because one of the biggest parts of this, of course, throughout this entire win streak was a healthy big three. Them actually playing games together, learning each other's tendencies, finding ways to score with each other on the floor. And really a lot of what they're capable of doing is the reason the lineups have been good is the big three, because we've seen it. there hasn't been a ton of bench scoring recently. I think the Indiana game was particularly the low point probably for bench scoring with this team. So they're helping out a lot, but you still have to put the right combinations on the floor, especially to have comeback victories the way they did today with the Chicago game and then about a week ago with that Sacramento game. It feels like a week ago. I actually don't even know how long it was ago.
It was last Tuesday. What is today? Yeah, it's basically Monday, Tuesday where we're recording from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a week ago.
Yeah,
Crazy
so
week.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think he does. Frank deserves credit as a coach who's been maybe unfairly maligned by either media, mostly fans, but sometimes media as well. New Orleans, I want to talk about that game a little bit more too because, Nurkic didn't have a great game today against Chicago. I thought he played well against Indiana. But in particular, if you go back to the New Orleans game, I thought Nurkic was just amazing, like a really, really an amazing game for Nurkic. What stood out to me about that game, too, is just the extent to which the way that the Pelicans guarded the Suns just used to work. It used to work against the Suns. And so much of it doesn't work now because of KD. It doesn't work because of Bradley Beal. But then it also doesn't work because of Nurkic. And part of that is just because the way that you were able to trap the Suns previously and force the ball out of the hands of the ball handler to the middle of the floor, whether it be DeAndre Ayton or Bismack Biyombo, and that decision-making from that point is what teams tried to do against the Suns, specifically in the playoffs, and I think the worst offender of it probably was the Dallas series, where the Suns were embarrassed over and over and over again. But Nurkic in this game just took that option away from them, and they created great shots over and over and over and over against that style of defense. It's just great to see something like that happen, and I think it really stood out, I think, for Suns fans who've been watching this team for years to see something like that happen in that game. So Nurkic was amazing. Not to mention, I think his defense has just gotten better and better and better as the season has progressed.
Yeah, and I think the defensive ratings reflect that as they, continue to creep up there. Not that he's elite or anything, but he had 5 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, and was a plus 30 in that New Orleans game that you're talking about, which is just such a, it's a Draymond Green stat line, really, is what it is. It's like I know they're different types of players, and Nurk is a lot heavier, and he's a real center, but that's what you think of when you see a stat line like that. You're just like, that is a guy who is instrumental to running this offense the way it needs to be run in order to succeed. The only unfortunate thing is that then, we still run into issues. First of all, knock on wood, Nurk has been healthy, and he needs to continue to stay healthy. But then you go into a game like Indiana, and he fouls out in less than 20 minutes. So it's great that Nurk is so instrumental to the Suns' offense and what they're doing. And it's also great that even when he's off the floor, we've kind of found this, quasi-solution of, well, at least if you have Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen, you can do the death lineup and you can play KD at the 5. We still need the intermediary solutions, whether that be Drew Eubanks sustaining this confidence that he had tonight and becoming a guy you can trust for 10 to 15 minutes again, or if it's Bol when he comes back. We know that he had a great stretch recently. Or if it's the trade market again. We're going to continue to talk about some trade names in a little while because the deadline is so close.
It's sneaking up on us. Yeah, we got a few weeks.
But it does, to your point, Mike, just kind of feel like right now maybe the biggest need for the Suns is a stable, consistent backup big man. Maybe it's not that.
It's funny.
Maybe it's not that large wing that we thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the short term, I think a large wing will be really helpful in the playoffs in general. But in the short term, if the Suns continue to get hammered and just killed in minutes without Nurkic on the floor, that's a disaster. And I think you're right in that the death lineup, as we're calling it, with KD at center and just guards.
We're
on the floor.
Workshopping nicknames for that, by the way.
Yeah, if you got a better name for that, yeah.
If anyone has a good one,
it's great, but. I mean, how much do you want to use it before the playoffs? It's putting a lot of stress on KD, whose defense, by the way, has been incredible throughout this stretch as well, whether he's at forward or at center. It's just a lot to put on him in order for the Suns to maintain what they're trying to do, and that's just winning games over and over and over again. And if you find a backup big where you don't have to panic as soon as they step on the floor, or if that's just Drew Eubanks playing better. Like, I'm not going to rule out that as a possibility. I know this is easy to say after a game where he actually played relatively well, but Eubanks has been playing so bad lately that it's just worse than he played last year. And if he can get up to the way he was playing last year, that would benefit the Suns. So it's not like we're expecting this improvement for him to be even better, which would be ideal, of course. But for him to just get back up to what we expected him to be would be a massive improvement for the Suns. Or even just how he played at the beginning of the season.
Just be the player that we tampered for and lost a second-round pick for. That's all we're asking, is be worth a second-round pick that we lost in draft capital. Regarding KD, with what you're talking about and kind of being worried about his load, I'm sure there are people in the Suns front office right now who are low-key crapping their pants about the fact that he played 40 minutes last night against Indiana, 41 minutes tonight in a back-to-back against Chicago. And they needed all 40 minutes of him in both nights in order to win those games. But it's concerning that that's happening in January, for sure. Yeah. And as they come up on the trade deadline here, they have to find whether it's, getting another tweener, a 3-4 bigger wing, or getting a guy who can take away some of his burden as a backup five. They're going to try and fill in those minutes around him somehow at the trade deadline.
Since we brought it up, I checked it. Just another net rating, defensive rating update on Jusuf Nurkic. He still leads the team in net rating, 8.8. Of course, we know why. The backup centers kind of don't have good net ratings for the Suns so far. Defensive rating down to 111.5 when Jusuf Nurkic plays, which is just really good. I mean, it's really solid for him to be that good defensively for this team when people really just didn't expect him to be. I want to talk about Bradley Beal. Just that we have 19 games now with Bradley Beal. And I feel like we haven't taken a step back and just sort of talked about the Bradley Beal experience so far, what it's like to watch him, because normally we like to do this kind of thing with new guys at the beginning of the season. And I think he has stood out recently he's had some clutch plays in the Indiana game. In particular, I thought he had some really important plays. Also, his defense has been really solid lately. I think he's been working really hard defensively. And the lineup stats are starting to show how big of a difference maker he can actually be. Whereas at the beginning of the season, you and I talked about it, they hadn't figured out the right recipes yet. So his stats didn't reflect the difference he made on the floor. Well, how have you felt about the Bradley Beal experience so far?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked Bradley Beal, right? I loved the trade from the second it happened. So, but in my estimation, he has continued to grow in my eyes since we've finally gotten him back healthy from the ankle injury, specifically a few weeks ago. I know it's kind of corny and cliche to say, but it really kind of does feel like as the third star, he is the glue on this team right now. Does that make sense? Like, he's increasingly becoming you need a game where Bradley Beal takes a million threes and just kind of dominates in that way. That was him about a week and a half ago against the Lakers, the Emma Stone game, the thing that started off this whole win streak in the first place. You need a game where he entirely puts his ego aside in a way that most superstars or former superstars wouldn't do, and takes on the challenge of guarding a guy 100 pounds heavier than him in Zion Williamson. That was him in the New Orleans Pelicans game. He's willing to do that. He's going to embrace that role. You need a game where you recognize his driving presence and the threat that he is to penetrate, and he's just going to go into a fourth quarter and find the pigeon, and that pigeon is Buddy Hield, and attack that guy again and again and again and get to the basket. That was the Indiana game last night. He is finding a way to fit into the system in a way that necessitates slightly different things from him every single night, it seems, but he's up to the challenge, and it's probably a really nice challenge for him to have, because it means he's playing winning basketball again right now, and he's playing important basketball again. He's been just really instrumental for this team.
He was a star, like a huge star on the team that he...
Taking 25 shots a game routinely.
Yeah. And
that's just not who he's going to be anymore.
No, and he comes to the Suns, and now we're like, hey, we need you to guard Zion.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, we need you to set 15 ball screens tonight. on whoever is guarding Kevin Durant. We need you to stand in the corner for the next 5 minutes and let Kevin Durant cook. Let Devin Booker cook. And he does it, night after night, night after night. And I think maybe it's easy to sometimes not fully appreciate. Just not everyone does that. Not everyone is going to be okay with that. Just coming into a new team the way that he has, and it's just, I'm just very impressed with his willingness to do some of the dirty work that it takes for this team in order for them to be good. Because the reality is, when you have 3 stars, they can't all play like stars at every minute of the game. They can't. You have to find ways to give each of them a chance to be that occasionally, but also you got to guard. You have to guard. You have to set screens. Total basketball, as we called it in the offseason. Everyone does everything. That's the idealized version of this team. And I think maybe what we didn't realize is the extent to which Bradley Beal was going to be the guy to exemplify that. I've just been really impressed with him. And occasionally he'll have games where he blows up. I forget which game it was where he just hit 8 out of 10 threes.
That was the Lakers game.
It's the Lakers game, just an incredible game for him to just come in and just score a ton of points. And then sometimes he'll just, like we talked about, guard Zion or hit 2 clutch baskets at the end of the Indiana game. Just really finding ways to fill in the gaps as that third star. Impressive.
And we're only scratching the surface too, because we're only talking about the on-court stuff. But I think there's an off-court component here too, and a leadership component with Bradley Beal that has been recognized by his teammates, recognized by fans, recognized by the media. And I think he's just a really well-liked guy no matter who you talk to, and that's important. You ask Kevin Durant and Devin Booker who the funniest guy on the team is. They said Brad. I mean, they said it might be Saban Lee too, but they answered Brad first. You ask, in sort of his talking to the media, back when this team was struggling 10 games ago, who was the guy who was consistently giving straight up answers to the media, holding the team accountable in a way that I love the other 2 guys, but they're just not really willing to do. That was also Brad. So he is just such a versatile guy. His on-court stuff, his off-court stuff, he's doing it all for this team right now, and it absolutely needs to be acknowledged.
And he's unique specifically for this team in his play style with his ability to attack, but also how quick he can move in the mid-range to get guys just off balance and then blow by them, shoot step-back mid-range shots. He's got so many moves within that area. It's not how KD plays. It's not how Devin Booker plays, and nobody else on the Suns can attack like that. So it's really unique to watch him to play. And I'm just excited to watch more of it. They've played the big 3 together, have now played 240 minutes together on the court, obviously more overall. Offensive rating 125. That's going to continue to rise with those 3 playing together. Defensive rating 110.2 when those 3 play. And that's the thing that's been the big surprise to me lately, is the extent to which the defensive numbers are pretty good with Bradley Beal on the floor. Net rating, obviously, 15.2.
Yeah.
2.98 assist to turnover ratio when they play together. I should mention that one because that was a problem early in the season.
I mean, we're not seeing it consistently, I don't think, still over the course of a 48-minute game. A lot of that is normal, but we consistently see in these games, Sacramento come back, Chicago come back tonight. It's like an event will galvanize them or kind of ignite a certain energy for them. And then you were watching it with me, their rotations in the fourth quarter against Chicago. Yes, Chicago started missing some shots too, but it was all of a sudden, once they were locked into this game, once KD knew they had to be locked in, Brad knew he had to be locked in, Grayson, they were on point. Every rotation, they were on point. And it's I wish that it was like that all the time. But when they do find that level, it can be kind of scary. They can look like a borderline top 10 defensive team for stretches.
Yeah. And that would be huge. That would be massive for them to be able to get in there. 5th in the standing so far. Any more extended stretches of them being healthy, I think, will obviously have a large impact of where they can end up. Ideally, they're just not a play-in team, right? That's kind of what the Suns want. Health cannot be fully controlled. You have to do your best with whatever you get. But if you're not a play-in team, you make the playoffs. If you're healthy in the playoffs, then anything can happen, as we've seen time and time again. So we just need them to be healthy. But overall, I just wanted to take a step back a little bit and talk about Bradley Beal. Since we're talking about the 6-game win streak too, I do want to mention just Grayson Allen too has been really amazing lately. He just continues to hit shots over and over and over again. And I think that sometimes his consistency actually makes us sort of almost not talk about him a little bit, because it's just like you just expect him to be good, and he is just over and over and over again, just really consistent in hitting the 3-point shots that he's making for the team. I think in that 6-game stretch, I just brought it up now, he's shooting 57.5% from 3 on 6.7 attempts per game.
Do the Suns deserve a third All-Star, and is that third All-Star Grayson Allen? That's
he was
what the
in
people are
Boston or
wondering.
LA, yeah.
Yo, if he was in Boston, they would be gunning for him to get the Kyle Korver All-Star spot for sure.
Yeah.
His defense has also just been solid too, man. Here's
Solid.
a fun stat. I don't think anyone's mentioned this about Grayson. At least I feel like us two, we haven't mentioned this about Grayson this year. But did you know he's got 24 blocks this season?
Wow.
Last year, Milwaukee, he starts 70 games. He had 14 blocks the entire year. What happened? He tripled his block production in a single season. I don't know how he did that, but he did that, and it's kind of important.
Since I have the 6-game win streak stats up in front of me, here's just a weird one. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in the 6-game win streak, and this is a credit to the consistency of Kevin Durant here, are averaging the exact same number of points, have scored the exact same amount of points in that 6-game win streak. 29.2 per game, 51% from the field for Devin Booker, 55.8 for Kevin Durant. And there's just both of those guys are just having an insane stretch right now, spurred on by, of course, the 52 points by Devin Booker in that New Orleans game, which we barely talked about, by the way, because it's a overall win streak. It just has the feeling of them all playing well, all at the right time. But yes, just a remarkable series from, let's see, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. We talked about them. Grayson Allen. We talked about Yusuf Nurkic. Is there anyone else you want to talk about? The bench has been kind of disappointing, and I guess that's how we can transition into the next part of this podcast. But is there anyone else that stands out for you?
It's been largely disappointing, except for the momentum we got from Eubanks and KBD tonight, which obviously we talked about was great to see. And then we're still waiting on Bol Bol to come back, because he's kind of one of the more promising players that we got. Other than that, on the bench, I don't really think so. You know, Josh plays. He's there.
He plays. He's the only one that played all 6 of the games besides those guys that we just talked about.
He has his moments, but he... he continues to struggle offensively, and I don't think that's going to change. So I don't think we have to have an extended conversation about him.
Yeah, I think with Josh, you got to, and I think they did that well today. You got to pull the plug if it's going really badly, because sometimes he just doesn't have it with certain guys too. We saw Jamal Murray destroyed him in the playoffs. There's just certain guys that he struggles to guard, and Kobe White was pretty amazing in this one. Was just doing a good job, just getting right by him.
You just
got to pull the plug.
Gotta be high up there. We were debating this a little bit on the stream too. I don't know who the betting odds leaders are in most improved player right now. I haven't looked at all that, but Kobe White's got to be up there. He is just really impressive to watch right now. And we were talking about too the fact that it's gotten to the point where you're a lot more afraid. The Bulls have been stringing together some momentum in general. They've been winning games, but it's like you're more afraid of Kobe White than you are of DeMar DeRozan when you're playing him now. I think you're like, you got to guard Kobe farther out. You know that he can play make for others. You know he's a better driver, can get you on his hip. Yeah. It's just crazy how far he's come.
Well, I think when guys play with pace the way he does too, it's just scarier too, because they're just blowing by you and in transition and finding ways to find other guys from 3. Like a lot of the 3-point shots that they generate are because of Kobe White's penetration, just doing it over and over and over again. So we've talked about the bench. They've struggled. Metu didn't even play tonight, and for a good reason. He hasn't been very good lately. Keita Bates-Diop had a good game. Drew Eubanks had a good game, but they're not consistent. They're just not very consistent. That's the biggest problem with them so far. So we've talked about that the trade deadline is coming. We're starting to get, I don't know, do we want to call this slop season, guess or grift season? What do we want to call this? It's the time of year where we're starting to get trade rumors over and over and over again. So I'm trying to keep track of as many of the guys that I've seen in these trade rumor type columns, sometimes by guys like Mark Stein, right? Sometimes by guys that are at so-and-so, and this is from an aggregated account, and I've never heard of them before. But I tried to put as many of the names as possible together for you so we can just talk about a couple of them and actually see how we feel. First one I want to mention, because it was now finally reported that Saddiq Bey is available in trades. Now, I said that I talked to somebody recently and they told me the same. It's now been reported Saddiq Bey is available in trades. How do you feel? Okay, I guess I'll say this. Does his shooting scare you at all? That he's just not shooting very well this season? 31% from three. He's a huge body. Shot 40% from three last year. We'll give him the credit he deserves there. Does his shooting scare you at all?
I mean, a little bit, but, insofar as this is a guy who's on a rookie contract still that you'd be giving up like Nasir Little and second-round picks for, whatever, no, I think this is like as good of a gamble as you could reasonably take. He's still a 35% three-point shooter on his career. He's shot better than this current three-point percentage. He's at 31% right now. But he's just done a lot better than that in 3 prior seasons, and he's been in kind of a precarious position where, sometimes he starts, sometimes he doesn't, hasn't really had a stable future with the Hawks for a while. I think it's easy for guys to go through shooting slumps and kind of have their confidence slashed a little bit. So, I think some of the stuff that he does, like grabbing offensive rebounds or, playing a little bit of defense, he's not like a defensive stopper, I wouldn't call him exactly, but I think there's enough to his game that is well-rounded that he would be an upgrade regardless of if he can become a 40% three-point shooter or not. I feel good. Yeah, I want Saddiq Bey. I'm into it.
Brett Siegel, by the way, is the person that reported that. 6'7", 215 is what he's listed at, and that's like the main reason you trade for him. And really, it's just like, can you be better than Keita Bates-Diop on a regular basis? And there is more evidence as far as a longer period of time that Saddiq Bey has been better than Keita Bates-Diop, than Keita Bates-Diop's one good season, which was last season, and then this season, which he's been bad for most of the year. So for me, it makes sense. You try to do it. From what I've heard, it wouldn't take much to get him. I don't know if that means the Suns will actually do it. If they're trying to shed salary, the Suns could take him on into their trade exception and just give them second-round picks back, and then they basically trade him for nothing. The Suns would have to cut a player or make a 2-for-1 trade in order to make the roster spot, but they absolutely can trade for him if he's available. So I don't know if a second-round pick or 2 will do it. The Suns have a few. I think they have 3 that they can trade right now, so maybe 4, but that could be enough to get him, maybe just a few of those. These guys are, I guess one of them could potentially be available, but it was reported that Buddy Hield and Obi Toppin would be available. So, Buddy Hield is too much, right, for the Suns to cobble together the salary.
He's making $19 million. And also, we saw what happens to Buddy Hield a night ago when, you try and play him down the stretch in an important game. I do have a lot of respect for Buddy Hield, for just the constant fire away mentality that he has, and no one chucks quite like Buddy Hield chucks, and he's good at it. He's been good at it for over half a decade, but he's not a player that I think the Suns need right now at the cost of other guys.
Yeah. So, Obi Toppin.
Yeah.
You could trade Nasir Little for Obi Toppin.
Don't know what Obi's future is in Indiana, obviously, since they made the Pascal Siakam trade. Yeah, he's making $6.8 million. You're right.
$6.8 million. I checked it. You could trade Nasir Little. It's legal within the rules for the Suns. He's shooting well from 3 this season, not on a ton of attempts per game. He has athleticism, right? He can get up above the rim. He's a lob threat. The Suns don't have a lot of lob threats. He's also a bigger body who could potentially guard larger players or play, sort of small ball center-ish lineups with KD. In the game as well, so you could have 2 bigger bodies on the floor. not like an ideal perfect fit for the Suns in that you probably want slightly more versatile defender. But I mean,
you can talk yourself
bad,
into
right?
this
It's
though.
not
I mean,
bad.
this is kind of your like, let's go for a Grant Williams type mold player that Boston had as recently as last year. Obi. I mean, this would be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, this would be pretty good. What I'm more curious about is how do you talk him and his agent into this fit? And I guess because he's a restricted free agent this summer, and I guess the thing is like, how many minutes does he need to play? I think it's unlikely that he would re-sign with the Suns. I think this would be a rental.
And that's for a guy that's on a 4-year deal or 3-year deal in Nasir Little. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Which is fine. I think a lot of these guys could be rentals, like older players who are pending unrestricted free agents could be rentals too. It's more about like, if you're Obi, you need to convince him and his agent that this is a place where he can have a great run and play 25 minutes in your playoff rotation and turn that into a Bruce Brown contract or something, right? Because I think that's what he's looking for. I think he's looking for a place where he can make $20 million potentially on his next contract.
Thank God for Bruce Brown. Yeah.
whether that's with a good team or a mediocre team, by the way. But like, I think he's open to playing with good basketball, playing with a good team. Like
I agree,
Suns.
and I
but
think
he needs
that
to log
maybe.
minutes.
Well, I think he would for the Suns. Like, I think he would be the first forward off the bench for the Suns, like right away. And like he started for the Pacers recently. If maybe his agent can find him a team that he would start for. I don't know that that's probably not his future in the NBA as a starting power forward. Now he's losing minutes with Pascal Siakam on the team. Don't know if they're at all interested in somebody like Nasir Little. They have a lot of guys that are about Nasir Little's height on that Indiana team already, but he's an expiring salary as far as they're concerned. Like, it's not like he's on a long-term deal. You can't extract a lot of assets from a team for somebody like Obi Toppin, so maybe the second-round picks is enough, as well as the tradable salary, which is what Nasir Little has. I like it too. I think it's not a bad fit. I think he would be an upgrade off the bench for the Suns. Like, the questions of whether or not he would be like a consistent player who could play well in the playoffs, I'd probably still have about Obi Toppin. And, I'd have to watch a lot more of him to feel comfortable about saying whether or not that would be the case.
I'm just going to look at, because, the Knicks have been a playoff team, so Obi's gotten some playoff minutes before. It looks like he didn't shoot well from three. He's played 16 career playoff games with the Knicks over their 2 playoff runs. Only shot 31% from three. The other thing about Obi, can grab offensive rebounds. I wouldn't call him a great rebounder in general. His numbers just aren't that great traditionally. But yeah, I guess I'd be curious to kind of look, mostly at some of that defensive film for him back with those Knicks series.
Yeah.
Because I trust him. I really do trust him as a finisher. And if at the rim, and if he can hit his threes, there are few more potent offensive options. He just has to survive on the other end.
Yeah, and also he can set screens, roll to the rim. Like, it's nice to have a guy who can do both. Suns don't really have that from a player right now, except for apparently Bradley Beal. The whole Wizards roster is available except Bilal Coulibaly, according to, I think, Brett Siegel as well. Look, it's not easy to find a bunch of guys that you can trade for on that team, but I'm going to mention Corey Kispert again. You mentioned him before the season. I'm going to mention him now again. We talked about him a few weeks ago on the podcast. Only makes $3.7 million. If they just want to get off his salary, get a couple second-round picks or 1 second-round pick for him, the Suns could do that into one of their multiple exceptions that they have. He's makes enough that he could fit into the campaign one. He can fit into the other one. I forget the other one that they created, but
yeah, this would be like Yuta, but actually good, because Kispert is definitely a sharpshooter, and he's proven that for several seasons now.
Sharpshooter, good assist to turnover ratio in general, mediocre defender, but a smart team defender, and has some ability to hit like drop off passes or driving kicks on closeouts. So, obviously not going to be like a great finisher at the rim. So he's there to launch threes.
Does that mean, and I don't think the Suns can't get this guy, he's way too valuable, but like they're willing to move on from Denny Avdia?
Yeah, potentially. That's the report, at least.
Interesting, because I really wonder what his value is. He's already signed an extension. That extension is backloaded or front loaded, sorry. So he's making more at the beginning and then less at the end. And he's averaging a career high in points, career high in assists. Obviously the Wizards suck, but he's a good player. Defensively versatile. Would kind of be the ideal, like if the Suns could get Denny Avdia, they'd win the championship right now. I would tell you something like that, but they're just not going to be able to get him for Nazir Little.
He'd be great in small ball. He's a good defender and he's a good passer. It's kind of
he's averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists to 1.7 turnovers, a steal, half a block, 50% from the field, 35 from deep. I mean, I'm just reading you off Bruce Brown's stats from last year, basically.
Yeah, and a bigger guy than Bruce Brown, and potentially guard bigger players. That would be a great player to get. I think, and I don't have it in front of me, but the poison pill provision, basically, the Suns would have to create the cap space enough in a trade to make room for his extension, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, we're talking about our asses now. We'll have to look that up later. I mean, that's a great one too. I mean, that would be the type of player that I would love. And Kispert's just one that makes enough salary. Gafford would be amazing off the bench for the Suns. Just makes too much. It's hard to come up. It's hard to come up with any trade scenarios where that makes sense. Obviously, Kyle Kuzma would be an excellent fit on the Suns too. Can't really find the salary to make that trade. They paid him a lot of money specifically to trade him. So can't come up with anything there. But if any other Suns fans have any ideas for a trade there, I'd love to hear them. This was just reported. I'm not saying the Suns should do it, but Malcolm Brogdon apparently is available. Just wanted to say it because I thought that was interesting. Next one, KJ Martin, according to Mark Stein. By the way, I want to mention this too. The Wizards roster thing was Shams, so that's real. The only untouchable player is Bilal, he said. But KJ Martin, according to Mark Stein, is available for a second-round pick.
He had a good year with Houston last year, actually.
And he's completely out of the rotation.
I haven't watched him. I don't think I've watched a second of him play basketball this year, so I guess he hasn't been playing a lot.
The stats aren't good. The stats don't look good, and hasn't played a lot, though, so it's hard to really figure it out. Super athletic, and that's kind of the main thing that you're getting if you trade for him. There's a lot of veterans who play his position on that Philadelphia team, so he can't find a way into the rotation at all. I think for the Suns, if you trade for him, it's no guarantee there either. But to me, that's the type of move for KJ Martin in particular. If you trade for somebody, like, for example, I don't know, somebody that makes like $10 million. I don't know if there's a guy that stands out in your mind. And you have to trade 2 guys, and now you can trade a second-round pick for KJ Martin to fill that empty roster spot that the Suns have. That'd be a perfect move for them to do.
KJ's so young. He's 23. I'm looking at his page here. It does kind of feel like the move. In fact, he just turned 23 2 weeks ago. Feels like the kind of move we beg James Jones to make, and he just never does. Like, I think he's going to go...
Nasir Little replacement. It's kind of the same player in some ways.
Exactly. If he needs a Nasir Little replacement, then okay, maybe. But given the choice between a veteran with some playoff experience and a just turned 23-year-old guy who had one good season on a 15-win Rockets team, I think he's probably gonna choose the veteran.
Yeah. Caruso
would be so awesome.
It really is the best.
We need to talk about the Bulls in general. You know who sucked tonight? Andre Drummond sucked tonight, but I would still take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I mean, it's just an option to have. Torrey Craig didn't play. The Suns had a little tribute to him, by the way. Torrey Craig didn't play, but obviously we talked about Torrey Craig and Andre Drummond for Nasir Little as a fake trade we made in the past. Caruso's probably available. There's probably a lot of teams that want him. You'd have to really hope his agent has a lot of power in order to get him on the Suns, because otherwise I think a bad team would probably be willing to give up more assets than a good team would have in order to get somebody like Alex Caruso, right?
Alex Caruso, I will make you... I mean, what's the best pitch you can give him? Like, you are our 7th man? Because he's not... Is he going to play in front of Grayson Allen or Eric Gordon?
He could start on this team. I mean, potentially in the playoffs.
He could start exactly where Grayson Allen is starting, but I don't think you want to mess with that mojo. So I think the best thing is you're our 7th man, and we'll play you 25 minutes, and we'll just do a 7-man rotation. Like, those are the only people we're playing. Maybe we play one big off the bench. So it's an 8-man rotation.
Bull. Yeah.
and then Alex Caruso and Eric Gordon, we're just going to go super small, and you guys are going to have to shoot threes. Yeah, I guess you could do it. It's not the most natural fit.
I just don't think...
But I love
that would be that's probably my favorite one. The Suns don't have the assets
He's averaging a block a game in 25 minutes.
Yeah, and he's small.
And
he's shooting great from
6'4".
three this season, and he's actually shooting, because last year he didn't take a lot of threes. He's actually shooting those threes this year, and he's hitting them. Just a really capable player who guards bigger. I mean, he guards all the way up to power forwards, and can even spend some time on a center, depending on who they are. You absolutely need it.
He was matched up on KD tonight, and we were like, all right, KD, you're 7 feet tall, like rise up over this midget. But, also you have to beware a little bit, because he can swipe with his hands, and he can easily come up with some forced turnovers.
Here's another one, Matisse Thybulle. It'd be great, right? He's shooting well from three this season. Don't think they want.
What's his
I don't even
though?
think the Suns could trade him back there, Nasir Little, but I don't think they want Nasir Little, because that's like the one team we know that probably doesn't want Nasir Little, right?
Wait, he's making 10.5. Can we do this?
You'd
Nas
have to.
plus
I think you'd
minimum?
have to do Nas plus a minimum, and maybe you don't quite get there. Maybe it's a little.
I'm
bit
not
more,
sure. I'm not sure if we can get to this one. I'd have to double check that. In theory, yeah. I mean, he's Josh Okogie who can shoot. And that's what Matisse Thybulle is at this point.
We don't have to spend too much time on him, getting close to an hour here, and I want to get this one out quickly so people have a chance to listen to something after this Bulls game. But Otto Porter Jr., this was not reported. I just put his name out there. Only to really gauge how you feel about somebody like Otto Porter Jr. What do you think?
Where is he right now? I don't even know
Toronto.
what team he's on. He's in Toronto, so it shows you. I've not watched Otto Porter Jr. this year. I just straight up have not. My first thought is he fits the body archetype in that he plays the right position. He's always been kind of scrawny, though. And I also wonder what his relationship is like with Bradley Beal. Do you know anything about that?
No, that's interesting, though, actually.
You think it's kind of...
They could be friends, yeah.
Kind of interesting to think about if those guys are friends or if they have good memories from their Washington days together. I don't have strong feelings about this one. What do you think?
Same. I don't think it's terrible.
Where is this coming from, I guess?
I was just looking at salaries and trying to figure out guys.
6.3.
Yeah. You could trade Nazir for him. You also could, I think he fits, if I'm not mistaken, into the exception. So that's potentially one you could do there.
He was so good. He was so good on Golden State, but that was
that's
2
the
or
thing,
3
right?
years ago.
That's why you do it, right? And it's a few years ago, obviously, but that's why you do it. Because you kind of, it's not because of this season, right? It's not really because of last season. You're just kind of buying into the idea that there's still something there from that season that he could potentially do. Last question I have for you. We talked about Cedi Osman as a buyout candidate. What about a trade candidate?
Would I trade for him?
Would you trade Nazir Little for Cedi Osman?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, sure.
I think I would too. Yeah, that's another guy where, like, if the buyout market is, first of all, the Spurs don't have to do it, right? They don't have to buy him out. Maybe they don't want to. But maybe they're willing to buy low, if you will, on a guy like Nazir Little who makes a small amount of salary, who's young enough and can actually develop on a bad team like the San Antonio Spurs. And you get somebody like Cedi Osman who's not exactly what the Suns need, right?
No, he's a skilled...
He's not a great defender.
Yeah.
And
this would be like...
better than the forwards we have coming off the bench right now.
This reminds me of...
question.
This reminds me of, I think, when you had David on the pod a few weeks ago, didn't he bring up Joe Ingles as well, who's kind of just rotting on the Magic bench or something? You know, this would be in the mold of that, I think. It's like, it never hurts to have more skilled guys off your bench who can shoot. It's not exactly what the Suns need, but I wouldn't turn my nose up at it either if the price wasn't horrible.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So those are all, when I did my cursory Googling of the trade rumors, these are the guys that I could come up with. If you're listening and you have some ideas for potential options for the Suns to take a look at, I would love to hear them. You know, it'd be interesting to find out who those guys are and what ideas that you have. You got anything else before we go? Actually, I have one thing. We have hats now. Ethical Hoops hats.
Celebrate Kevin Durant's 83 points in ethical fashion on a back-to-back with an Ethical Hoops hat. Check out, remind me of the link, Mike.
Ethicalhoops.com.
Ethicalhoops.com. Shows
really
you what I
easy
know.
To find. Yeah.
Ethicalhoops.com. We've got it in several colors. And, excited about that. We're going to look for, see if we can figure out another hat design, too, before the end of the season here. But
if you have an idea for a hat that you would like us to make, let us know, and if we
You
use
can
it,
pitch
we'll just give you a free one. Yeah, if we end up using it. So, yeah. So check that out, ethicalhoops.com. And also, we've been doing a ton of games on Playback. If you ever want to join us, playback.tv/the timeline. If you download the app, it's available on both iPhone and Android now. If you download the app, it'll notify you when we're live and what games we're doing in case you're not able to pay attention online. That's a good way of finding out when we're live. As well, patreon.com/the timeline. We'll be back with a midweek Patreon podcast episode.
After a huge game on Wednesday, presumably against Dallas. So the big games against playoff teams continue. Let's keep it rolling.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back very, very soon.